I am here.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, citizen comments from folks who are in the room.
Michelle Lankowski. Okay, so I came in to talk about the food trucks. Tony from Rose Garden, Demetria from Red Ox couldn't be here because she had to be at the restaurant, so she's wanted to let everybody know that she's kind of on board with what we were going to say. So I'm going to read this because it'll just be easier. So, as you are considering allowing food trucks into Hampshire, I'm asking you to consider holding off until after the COVID pandemic is over. We have no idea how long this is going to go on. It could be a year or longer before restaurants and bars are able to open to full capacity. We are down to takeout for our restaurants. Our revenues are down 50 to 60%. The relatively low cost of food trucks are a motivating factor for these businesses, and the mobility gives operators an edge over the expenses of running a brick and mortar restaurant. Brick and mortar restaurants contribute significantly to the culture and economy of the village. Restaurants pay property taxes. We have a vested interest in seeing our community continue to grow and thrive so that our businesses will flourish. Food trucks operate on the appeal of mobility, not stability. So I just want you guys to take that into consideration. You know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Vince Ferguson?
Yes,
Mr. Ferguson.
I have two issues. One is flooding on the corner of State and Panama. And that's been going on, I guess, for about 30 years. I found out about it the first time about 5 or 6 years when we had that 7 inches of rain and acquired substantial damage in the property that I have on that corner. Having earned my living in wastewater and stormwater for 20 some odd years and being licensed to run plants and so forth, I had asked the streets department at that time, seeing what was going on, because we had water shooting out of a manhole 100 foot upstream. We had Main Street, which is high, and some of the other neighbors had opened up some of the grills so that we could actually see into the bottom of the manhole mains. The water going through the main on State Street, it was only about 1/3 full, which indicated there had to be a problem between the one grate and the manhole where that water was going in. And I was told they had cambered it, and I believe it was you, Jeff, that informed me in the back of the church that the pipe actually angled up to the top of the manhole instead of the bottom. Now, since then, I've had flooding twice. I've had to replace hardening and so forth in the lower unit. And it has been my hope that the city would remedy this. As at this point, that's faulty engineering somewhere along the line. So my thought would be that you guys could address that issue.
I second that. We're still getting water too in our basement. And it was up to my knees the other day in our basement, and it happens all the time. And it's coming from, like Vince said, from the manhole in the street in front of our building. When that starts leaking out into the street, that's when the water starts coming into our basement. But if the flow is steady, there's no water. But once it starts backing up, then it comes into the building.
We'll also add that we actually dug 2 canals in our front yard to get the water out, and we had to dig out that drain so that we could get water to go down. We lowered the water level over 1 foot by getting it into the Main Street main. So now I got a big canal in my front yard.
Yeah.
And we have a pile of sod alongside that manhole because there was a mound of dirt around the manhole, or the stormwater manhole, that did not allow water to get into it. We have since dug it out, but that's only a temporary measure until the city actually comes and addresses the issue. I actually using a shop wet vac and removed 260 gallons of water from the garage on Sunday.
In conjunction to their statements and their issues too. As you know, highlighted.
Hold on, hold on. Are you done with your,
With the stormwater, at this point, as long as we're addressing it and so forth, yes.
Okay.
Okay? Do you want me to go to the second one now?
Second one.
All right, the second issue is I have a property at 193 Jefferson, and it has to do with the water bill. You and I just briefly talked about it. We had an agreement because of that particular tenant being a problem, that if the water bill hit $200 and they didn't pay at least half of it, it should have been shut off. It's now at $900. And, you know, I'm sitting there and saying, who's gonna pay that? Because I'm in the process of removing that person.
well, the ultimate end person that's responsible is the landlord. Don't know why I got up to 900.
That's my question.
Somebody living there, I don't think we can just unilaterally just shut the water off because more of a legal question, I'm sure we'll have to.
And that needs to be
Council,
explored,
Mr.
but even before, this started before the virus. So it's.
Jamie Mowers.
Is now joining.
Right, no, I understand before the virus, but we'll have to look into that with.
Hello.
What, was it 193?
We can hear you, Jamie.
East Jeff-
Okay.
I haven't seen that one.
All right. Next.
Gina Pearson? I'm actually here with The Cave. My brother David owns The Cave. I'm managing partner, and Sue and Jeff from Minahan's, which I think is changing names. But we are here as brick and mortar businesses, only serving alcohol. We're not a restaurant. So I don't go off on a tangent. I would just like to read what I wrote in my notes like Michelle. I would just like to start by thanking the board for us using some of your meeting time tonight. I'm here with David Ruth, my partner at The Cave. We understand food trucks are going to be a topic discussed tonight. I would just like to give our input about bringing some food trucks to Hampshire to provide opportunities for our community to grow even during this pandemic. As we are one of the brick and mortar businesses in our downtown, these trucks are key to keeping our business open, not just right now, but after this time also. Lost my spot, didn't fill space. We were granted a PPP grant, and as to the guidelines set by the federal government, I need to bring back 75% of my employees for a period of at least 8 weeks for that to remain a grant instead of a loan. We are limited to what we are able to offer the community. And before Sam Toya recommended yesterday to communities and businesses to think outside the box and to be creative, I was already on it. We started on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. We partnered with an already patronized food truck in Hampshire, Burritoville. Nobody could have expected the turnout that we had. The only advertising we did was social media. On our Facebook media, our Facebook page, The Cave, we had over 7,000 hits. 7,000 hits. And I'd be happy to share that with you all if you don't believe my number. People wanted to know new information and were excited for something new in the village. That day not only gave my starving business a boost, but Blocks reported high sales that day. The Vintage Hammer had some items out and they were being recognized as a new business in the neighborhood. People were able to see the progress of the beautiful GABR building across the street. The people made the statement by showing up and asking, when was this gonna happen again? The announcement from the governor yesterday changed my addressing you tonight a little bit differently. Now, besides wanting to tell you how great these food trucks are and how they are going to help us give jobs back to our employees, they are going to keep our brick and mortar 3-generational business open. I would like to just take a minute to talk about the new phase 3 of the governor's plan. Many times in years past, we have come to a board with a special request to close Maple Place. That is the street between Washington and Jefferson. From Washington through my other business, Midtown Beauty Salon, which has an active alleyway and going through there, right before Black Supermarket parking, we would like the board to consider allowing us to close that same location every Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the month of June, and this will allow for a food truck to come in and park and us to put up a few tables following the governor's guidelines. This is a completely safety precaution. We're not wanting to, have people congregate in big groups, but if we don't block off that street, we found with the taco truck, and it was so heavily attended, there was some safety issues with cars and people waiting in the streets, and we tried to have our employees, monitor that, but it just got a little bit crazy at times. So that is completely for a safety issue. And while they're waiting for their food, they can remain socially distant. We would like to use David's personal property, the gravel lot in between Blacks and the Cave, to put a few picnic tables if people would like to stay and eat. We would also be using that lot that will be roped off as an area for our bar clients to enjoy a beverage. We will still be following the 10 people or less in that area. Now, I would like you to consider us to use part of the sidewalk to put up a few tables, which we could rope off also, similar to what the other State Street restaurant and bar does during their summer months. We hope that you all consider bringing back various food trucks, which I would like to put out there, all have different food than what our current restaurants are offering. I am not trying to compete with any one in particular restaurant. I want to work together and provide something new and great for the village and state and business. We can all work together as a community, and this can be huge, to making Hampshire a place people can come and have even more options for food, support each other's businesses, and bring Hampshire one more step into this ever-changing time. And, Sue and I talked a lot today about contacting various food trucks and say the Cave will allow them to use our property or the street property or whatever on Tuesdays. And then they would go down to Minahan's on Thursdays. We're not asking for high weekend volume coming in, restaurants. And I know Michelle said that her business was down 50 to 60%. We are bringing in 10% of our business. 10% is what we are bringing in right now. So, and they're bringing in 0. So this is something that can help everybody. We'd like to invite, Michelle has another business outside of town using one of their, that restaurant and bar to, utilize the food trucks also. So anyway, that's just where we stand. So thanks for listening.
I don't have another restaurant.
Oh, you don't
No,
have
other
a
partner does, but
Okay.
in the same, why not partner with the local restaurants in town?
Well, the problem is that you guys are on State Street. So, and I'd like to address that too. So when the village the village board decided when this all went into effect that your regular liquor license for your restaurant and bar is now able to do packaged goods, carryouts. That affected my business.
We sell
As
maybe.
little as
one
you
bottle a month.
have.
Yeah, it's,
As little as you have,
yeah, I get it. Sure.
I'm just putting it out there as you can see.
Right.
So, I mean, we go days with 1 or 2 customers each day for 10 hours a day. And if we close, as soon as you close, you lose the business. Because if the one customer comes and you're closed, you've lost that customer. So by bringing in the food truck and seeing how well it went over and not having any contradictions to the businesses on what they serve, and I would like to stick to that. You know, I wouldn't bring in anything that any of our brick and mortar restaurants already have serving. We're bringing in something different. One of our trucks is a taco truck, which is Burritoville, which has been established in the village of Hampshire for over 1.5 years. The second is Slow Smoke Barbecue, which I don't know if you all know, but they provide all of the barbecue for our Coon Creek days for the last 10 years. Do the Hampshire Street Dance, which is, or car, I'm not for sure what it is, but downtown Main Street. And then they also do the farmer's market during the summer. So they are already established in the village. I've talked to a company called Toasty Cheese. Toasty Cheese does toasty cheese, toasty tacos, toasty barbecue, and black tie. And when I talked to him today, I said I was meeting with the village board. It was undecided on what new rules and regulations or when or if this was even going to be happening. And I talked about some different fees. And I said, one, you would have to register with the village, from what I understand. 2, you would have to pay the 1% food and beverage tax that all of us have to pay, understand. 3, you would have to pay some type of an application fee to have your business allowed in, maybe into our town. The application fee might be for a one-time use, it might be for a yearly use. It's something I had heard that the village board was talking about. And he said it's very common in all villages, it's not uncommon at all. $50 to $75 is what a normal smaller town like ours, or if he's doing different communities for things, going down in the city and the bigger places, the fee gets bigger. So anyway, I just wanted to.
It's all in our ordinance.
I just wanted to let you all know that and, let you know where we stand.
Thank you very much.
David Ruth?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the taco trucks also. And everybody's hurting. These are crazy times. We're just trying to get creative and bring business to our brick and mortar establishment also. Ways, we don't provide a food service, so this is our way to provide a food service to my business. And I think it's a great way for the village to make a little extra money, a little more income to the village. I think it's keeping people in the village of Hampshire instead of going to the neighboring towns like Burlington, Cambridge Grove, Genoa is going to be opening up pretty soon. And people are going to leave Hampshire and they're going to go to Genoa, Burlington, and Cambridge Grove. So we're just trying to get creative over here and keep people in Hampshire, keep Hampshire money in Hampshire. So that's what I'd like to say.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Matthew Mariani.
Yeah, I have 2 things. My first one's real brief. It's tacking on to the Panama issue. So the 200 block of South Avenue suffers from similar flooding issues. My residence had close to about 1 inch of water, and standing outside of the residence between, I believe it's 222 South Avenue and 234 South Avenue, that 5 house square had a good 6-7 inches of standing water. I wasn't able to necessarily go out and physically measure it, but I could see several children aging from ages 5 to 9 going out and standing in it and driving their bikes through it. And it was getting up to their knees pretty readily. So, and eventually it did drain, but it was there for a long enough time for I and several of my neighbors to experience water coming into our basements. And even though we do have drainage from our houses away, it still goes to the street front property and then still ends up coming back. So I don't know if that is within the village's power to look at or review as they're looking at Panama, but perhaps that might be something that could be examined if it hasn't already been looked at. Let's see. And second point, I read in the initial minutes for this meeting that at the previous meeting, you had all request or were investigating the possibility of removing Hampshire from the north central jurisdiction of the Illinois reopen plans. I don't know if that gained any sort of traction with Representative Gaste or anyone else in the state. I've tried to keep up with everything else news-wise, so I've kind of lost track of all the various balls you all are juggling. But my worry is that you all too readily wish to separate from the city of Chicago instead of looking at the realities of where we geographically exist in regards to serving of the hospitals we are near and the reasons we are trying to minimize the impact of health maladies upon our community. Both the main hospitals we have are, Elgin or Huntley hospitals, which rely on the community surrounding I-90, which have people who live here, but also work within the cities and also work within Rockford and everywhere else. And I am worried that we are too eager just to separate from the usual city politics that is very familiar to us in rural Illinois compared to the urban center of Chicago, and maybe potentially harming ourselves and our neighbors in the process. So it would be my caution to you all to very carefully examine why you are attempting to relocate the city or the county or however you're seeking to go about this in a way that might not harm our residents and our families who all live and breathe and exist here in this space that coexists with other people who we need to see as our neighbors in this time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Ramsey Mowers.
Just about.
Let's talk about water. So, so it's been brought to my attention that the whole Highland water issue's been tabled.
Is what?
It's been tabled. Is it been tabled to be brought up in the future, or is it done? Like the funding.
As far as
Everything we have discussed.
still looking for funding.
Okay, so it's, we're not gonna put any kind of budget, we're just gonna look for funding from state or counties to get. My concern is that may never happen, but it's a real problem. And just so you guys know, if they're looking for funding, it may be a decade from now, because we make too much money in Hampshire, that's the problem. And being how we're all socialists, we have to, everybody has to sponsor each other. So we discussed this, and then we brought in a manager, right? Well, legally, you guys as a community are you have to not only maintain, but you have to ensure the efficiency of waterways. And that's not happening. So waiting for funding it's not gonna get it done. So it has to be put on a budget and it has to be effectively set aside. And the one thing I can say is that tap on the side of my house, there's a line there. And the lady that was here talking about it said they could tie into Hillcrest, and that would alleviate the backyard issues. Why can't we do that? That could be something maybe done for $50,000. That would help.
Now, which side of the house is where you're talking about?
I don't have the.
East or west side of your house?
Yeah, it's on the east side.
East side of your house?
So that's one thing. I mean, I'd really like something to occur, and we're waiting, we don't feel like we should come to every meeting and just, reinstate our desires and needs. We know what it is, and that's what we're looking to have it done. And when I heard it was tabled, which I don't understand why, I can understand, for a short period of time, that's kind of understandable, we didn't have the funding. But I think we need to get going in the right direction. We can't be putting up new buildings and township buildings. None of that stuff's gonna be desirable for people coming into this community when they see water sitting on the streets. And then when people start talking about it, you know, on social media, Hampshire's got a huge water problem. Are you gonna get a tax revenue? Think anybody's gonna wanna move to any of these communities that have issues like that? No. They can see the pictures. They can see people in boats in the park. Doesn't do a lot of good. I know, hey, it's 100-year rain, but it happens almost every spring, 3-4 times. You gotta have resolution. They need it too.
Did you get water this?
We sandbagged, we did sandbag with the weight from the cars and stuff with them, you know, right in the driveway.
Any further, sir?
Well, since it's tabled, am I correct? I'd like to make a motion to untable. The Highland water
It's
problem.
not on our agenda for tonight, that's for sure.
Well, let's make it on the next one.
It comes down to dollars and cents. And right now, we don't have those dollars and cents in the budget for $385,000 currently.
The 382 that we talked about, it's on the minutes that Mike brought up. The $382,000 resolution that, and I swear, I heard that we had some funding available to move to that. What happened? Did we pulled that completely? Like, I thought we were just looking for like, $80,000 for, from the riverboat or something like that.
$100,000 from the riverboat, we got turned down.
Okay,
We did the survey for the income this last March, trying to figure out if we could use our existing revolving loan fund money that's been allocated to the village. There, as you said, the neighborhood income too high. So we can't use those funds for that purpose. So we've looked at multiple funding options, trying to figure out the best way to fund it. It's not, we don't, our budget overall is about $3.8 million. And we're looking at a project that's gonna be $400,000. So a little 12-13% of our budget to do
well,
a
but
water
why
project.
can't we budget it in, like, money that we had set aside or discussed, Mike, you can interject.
So it wasn't money that was set aside, it was we put money into engineering, is what we did. And that's what we held true on, and we engineered the whole project to find out what it would cost to get done. When we came up with the figure of $382,000, there were 3 options, right? So the one that would be most effective, we were of the understanding. Now, we can certainly go back and look at the engineering and then, have them run different numbers. That's not gonna cost a ton of money to do. But when you look at that, we were trying to figure out, okay, where are we gonna get this $382,000? The big light at the end of the tunnel for the board at the time was that, as he referenced, the revolving loan fund money that we had to spend. But one of the qualifiers for it, which we didn't make the qualifier for it. It's just because I think it's funded by the Federal Housing Authority, that they were the ones that funded the block grant originally. So therefore, any project that we do has to be tied to low or moderate income. And we just don't.
So why are we
So it's like-
earmarking taxpayer dollars?
Because
to
as
fund
Jeff said, that the total budget for the village is $3.8 million.
I understand it,
A
so let's
year.
earmark this year, let's take 200, maybe next year, it's gonna go up, obviously, things do. Got to earmark more. I'm just saying, let's get in the right direction. Let's just not, avoid it like not saying you guys, but this village has avoided water issue in downtown for 30 years, maybe more. It was inadequately put in anyways. And then when you start adding new developments, despite what you guys say, there is no ground saturation occurring when there's concrete and asphalt. It's gonna run somewhere, and the fact that we're in a bowl, it's not always going to your retention ponds, believe me. So let's get after it, come on. Do something.
That's one of the reasons that we.
Be more aggressive, is what I'm saying.
No, that's one of the reasons we brought in Jay. And one of the things that the village board had tasked him with is trying to come up with a plan, right? Because there are a lot of these projects, because we talk about stormwater retention, stormwater problems, and plow trucks that are rusting apart, and public works buildings that need to get put up because of plow trucks that keep rusting apart. There's a huge list of needs. I'm not
I want to
making
clarify
yours.
though, we didn't bring Jay in for Highland
No.
and a water problem.
But-
The plan he's talking about is a comprehensive infrastructure plan. Because there are other things that need to be fixed as well as major water
Right.
issues.
I'm not making light of your situation. I'm just saying the village is, I don't want to say in disrepair, but we've got a whole list of things that we need to address.
Christine, I know a lot of this discussion and stuff happened before I joined. The question too, since for finance, was there ever any amount earmarked? I thought I saw in a budget there was a couple $100,000 that was earmarked.
282,000 earmarked.
So 282,000 was put into the budget specifically for that project. The only missing part was a grant.
The 100,000, 100,000 from somewhere.
Got it,
Whether it
but
was a
but
grant or somewhere
282K,
Mhm.
and that isn't, I know on this current budget, we didn't carry that forward to be that.
What are you guys paying interest? I mean, could it be privately funded and you guys pay it back in interest?
We give a call, we called the county and to try to see if there's any stormwater grants available. We've spoken to people at FEMA to try to find out if there's any stormwater grants available, which we've tried everything that we can. We on the board have tried a lot of different things to try to find money.
I'm just saying, if we earmark the 282, I mean, we're just 1 year away from it. And you know what, we need something, if we can, I mean, right now it's very unwavering and unknown. I mean, if that's the case, if it's 282, maybe next year we earmark a little more and then we get after the project.
And trust me, we talk about Highland Avenue constantly. So even though you think it's tabled, we haven't stopped thinking about it. We always think of, okay, where can we find this money? Where can we get this money? Is there any extra money we can pull from somewhere else? We think about it. We know that you have a problem and we have to fix it. We know that.
Maybe we gotta buy, you know, like maybe some grinding wheels and some wire wheels and some extra paint and take care of the trucks for a year or two.
That's a whole nother can of worms. Toby can speak to that. How much money have we spent in maintenance on the trucks falling apart?
Regardless.
One truck last year, 60 grand, just to keep it running.
So please believe us that you're not tabled.
And our village manager was hired to look into these items as well. Secure some kind of funding from outside sources that we don't have the time to do. That's one of his functions, is to.
So now he's walking into this fairly new, and I don't know how much they've told you, but you guys have just now electing him, or hiring him per se.
He worked for the state of Village. He
You're
worked for
strictly
Governor
legislative.
Thompson for a long time.
Legislative now, that's what I'm
So
saying.
he's not some Joe Schmo off the
I'm not
street.
saying he is.
This dude's
I'm-
got more
I'm not saying, did I say that?
city government that's
Say it.
awful.
I wish I was there.
I know that.
My
I'm just
point
letting
is-
you know, he's got the time to do it. We don't.
Yeah.
So he's out looking for grants, looking out for some kind of funding sources where we don't have the time. That's what he's doing.
My point is you guys are strictly legislative now. And does he know all the problems? Does he know all the years of problems? Have you had an opportunity to really investigate this? This is
Yes.
ongoing.
I shared
Every
all
time
that-
it rains.
I shared all that information with your wife this afternoon by email.
Appreciate that.
I'll just put in, I was swimming on Panama Avenue since I was 5 years old.
It's been, maintenance has been completely appended.
Anything else, Mr. Roberts?
We'll do it. Yeah.
Anyone else? On
That's it for tonight.
Well, this is Jamie. Can I just say something really quick?
You have a citizen on the.
Who's that? It's Jamie Mowers. Oh, okay.
I just have a question with regards to everything that's been going on. We've been dealing with this since 2017. You guys are aware that this is your problem. You're doing everything you say that you can. Legally, knowing that this is your problem, that this is something that you guys have to take care of, is there a timeline that's put on this? Like, how long do we have to continue to struggle because you guys, like you're saying you're doing stuff, but clearly the grants aren't out there for the problem that it is. So at what point do we stop looking at grant money to say, oh, hopefully we're going to get this. Hopefully this is going to work for us, because it's not working. 2017, we brought this problem to you, and now we're in 2020, and we're in the same boat we were.
We did do,
We did the
what did
mitigation.
those things? Didn't we clear out the,
Okay,
I forgot what they're called.
the retention ponds.
It was a
That's
drain.
great. That's
Right.
not the full thing. The
They-
project that you guys are doing is looking to make the drains more than twice what they are. So cleaning that out took a little bit off, but it's not doing it. It's the system itself. It's the system itself that needs to be redone. So if the grant money is not there, how can you guys figure out your budget to make it work? I know there's other projects out there that you guys say need to be taken care of, but I mean, this is crazy. This is since 2017. I'm just asking, legally, is there a timeline that you can give us that it needs to be taken care of?
I don't have her at this time, truthfully. I mean, we're looking
Is
at
your attorney present? Does your attorney know that?
the village. We're, you know,
No money.
at this point, I do not have a sound financial plan that I can give you on how we can fix Highland Avenue.
That's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking legally if there's an obligation by the city of something that needs to be fixed, knowingly it is damaged. It is the village job to have sufficient drainage. Is there a timeline that it needs to be fixed once it's seen that it's a problem? That's what I'm asking. I'm not asking if the finance for it. I'm asking if there's a timeline.
I don't know that. There's a legal definition of when it has to be fixed, I don't know.
Can you email your attorney and ask him?
He's on the call.
Mark,
Mark?
Do you have an answer?
Mark?
You still there?
I'm here.
No, Mark Schuster.
maybe our attorney dropped off the line. He's supposed to be on the call, was on the call in the beginning.
He's on the call.
I'm sorry, I was on mute for a second. There is no deadline.
Have you been copied in on all of everything that's been done since 2017? And are you working with the village when there's not grant money available to fix what is now almost becoming negligence because nothing is being done? They're looking for grant money. Clearly it's not there. So how do we go about it?
That's for the village board to decide.
Clearly they're not figuring it out since 2017. There's documentation showing this is on them. Not the village themselves, but this is a village problem.
True. And, you know, the option can become, the unfortunate truth, to fit a project like this in the budget, something major has to get cut. Now, that could be jobs, unfortunately, but the village is not looking at cutting employment. You know, we buy trucks to replenish our.
You have to have at least
Plow truck.
$100,000
Everybody in the
for
whole
leases?
plowed, and, you know, I know this is an issue, but it floods the street, right? Doesn't flood your house.
I'm sorry, say that again. It's one street? Is that what you said?
It floods the street, correct?
Yes, it's really
Okay.
flooded. Actually, what really flooded is the water system. You cannot take it.
Right. I know. I drive by there every time it rains. Trust me.
No, you don't, because you did
Sunday,
not show up when, I'm
what?
sorry, you weren't there on Sunday, and you definitely weren't on there, what was it, Friday? Because I was sending emails out, and guess what? My daughter and I were up, sandbag. We had to sandbag again another day. You weren't there, so please don't lie.
Say I stop by
I
your
was
house
outside sitting on the
drive
porch
by.
watching.
every time it rains like this. And I can tell you, when the creek gets full, everything backs up. And that, even if a new pipe is installed, if we get 8 inches of rain in 4 days, it's gonna back up, even with a new pipe.
No. Sheer volume.
No, it's not. You're incorrect. It's not going to back up the way it did. It needs to flow, and it needs to have a bigger system. That's what it was projected.
For a normal rainfall.
Well, the sheer volume of that pipe alone, going from, what is a 10 to a 24, would, believe me, that'd be some sort of resolution.
Well,
Why would be?
Well,
you're conveying it to the problem is you're conveying it to the same spot. So when the
Who is
creek.
speaking right now?
We can.
Ramsey's talking, Jamie, hold on.
So when the creek backs up, the whole system backs up. The Elm Street detention pond, which is 5 acres, fills up.
In all due respect, why didn't we just give you the money? We didn't have to hire the modeling to get that done. You already know.
I'm just telling you the fact of it, that all ends up in the same spot.
And
All ends up in the creek by the chicken dip. And when it backs up, everything backs up along with it.
You have retention ponds that aren't even filling up.
But they're not all connected
That's
to the
right. So
same
maybe you
area.
need to put on retention ponds. There's issues. They model this. We hired them as citizens. We hired them, right? We got done. Now we have to execute it. That's the problem. That is the problem. Not the modeling, not what occurs. It's the actual execution of the plan. Period. We got to start somewhere.
under the EPA's stormwater regulations, which started coming in 1992, have we done the required study, comprehensive study as required by the EPA? Okay.
Brad, you're on, right?
Yeah, sorry, I did not hear the question. It was fairly distorted.
The question was, in 1992, the EPA starts using stormwater studies to be done. When has our most recent stormwater study been done?
When we requested it.
For EPA mandates.
Yeah, I'm not aware of such study that's being referred to.
Okay.
So nothing that you're aware of or mandates is being mandated by the EPA for stormwater management, or not, or you're not aware of the village completing one?
I'm not aware of either document. Certainly, the village hasn't completed a system-wide or a village-wide study. Those are required per development as things move forward and as new developments come in. But I'm not aware of a requirement for a village-wide. Certainly, we can look into it if that's the desire of the board, but I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, that's the desire of the board. I think my.
I don't know if this is the right time to interject. I know we've been talking about Panama, but we're also. Yeah.
I just want to, what's the next step in motion that we have to go through?
I can't understand a thing.
I mean, if we got turned down with all those grants, what's the next thing to do?
Next plan, my advance, Mayor. It's not really a discussion period at all. Answer your question. I'm putting together a capital budget for the village. I've been here 4 months now. I'm putting together a complete capital budget for the village. Now, your project doesn't include any of the other people that are sitting here that are having to face significant damage as well. So the Highland Avenue is one of 3 projects that I was asked to look into. It's among the highest priority for the village when I arrived. I'm hearing about projects where people are having flooding in their basement now, and I'm seeing that. I saw that on Sunday. So there are a lot more. There are other projects. 1.7 million connected water systems that are to be done. So I'm putting together the capital budget. I told them right out to them probably in the calendar years, September, October timeframe. So we have plenty of time before the next year's budget comes May 1st next year. It's been a very long. We have $20 million worth of water pipes that need to be replaced in the old town, the same neighborhoods that we're talking about. $20 million worth of water pipes, unless they break, and we have to repair when they break. Well, this is not a $450,000 issue. This is a $50 million issue. Water infrastructure in this community, and it's been neglected for a very long time. We're doing a good job with the system. They struggled through the 08 recession, and now came into this pandemic. Pretty major condition. This pandemic is probably going to cost us 20% of our revenue in the village in the next 6 months. So we're looking at a very difficult time in the village right now going forward. So we have some really high priorities and very little money. The good news is, I'll make one more statement. State government passed a $26 billion infrastructure bill last year. We're doing everything we can. We're application pending. We're working on. We expect to get some of that funding, but it's also devoted primarily to moderate and low-income communities. And somebody used this example. My assistant right here used this example to me earlier. We're kind of like the upper middle class family that can afford to put the kid through college. Can't really afford to put them through college. Get into college, can't really afford it. But it makes too much money to get financial aid. That's kind of where we sit as a community. We're in between being a high priority for state funding and having enough funding to pay for our own things. So there are opportunities for long-term financing, large EPA loans and bond financing for infrastructure projects. That's what I'm going to be looking into in the next 6 months. So I can't promise you anything. In fact, I can suggest that probably not likely to happen this year. But we will have a capital budget by the end of this calendar year before we go into our budget cycle next year.
So like the state said, we have had significant flooding in our basement twice. And had we not been so on top of the sandbagging and stuff like that, it would be a lot worse. We probably averted, I don't know, at least another dozen issues. We would have 2 feet of water in our basement. And obviously insurance money doesn't cover anything. So say you get $2,000, you gotta refinish your basement. I gotta refinish mine twice out of my own pocket, so just throw that out there. So. My lovely daughter like the biggest thing.
So, as everyone knows, like it rained a lot on Sunday, but you guys just keep saying like it's an unusual amount of rain, and I understand that, but like our environment is turning into more of a rainforest climate, so we have to expect more rain. So the more rain we get, the more problems with flooding are just gonna keep coming in. And if they keep coming in, that just is showing like you need to start fixing things, and I understand the budget can't quite cover it, but there needs to be things possibly like set aside, or maybe like obviously there's other stuff that's more important than a flooding area, but at the same time, you need to distinguish from like the necessities from like the wants or like the hopes. And Mr. Hedges did come by on Sunday and he did see the amount of water in the street, but he also came an hour late to the flooding in the street. It was about 10 inches of standing water in the street by 329, and you guys think that we're the only house affected, but there's also other houses affected on the street. And when Mr. Hedges showed up, the water had begun to drain. So obviously it was draining, but I just wanted to let you guys know, like, we're not the only house that is facing this problem on Highland, and I know that there's multiple other streets that are also facing flooding, but it's a matter of how much water is affecting each street. If it's like 2 inches or 4 inches of standing water, maybe that isn't one of the most top priorities, but maybe look at the ones where it's like the 6 inches of standing water to the 10 inches, because the more it rains, the more water is just gonna keep coming. So I think that this needs to be set on a very high priority, and we need to stop prioritizing the things that aren't worth prioritizing, because as stated by someone over there, it was, or maybe it was my dad, but if people keep saying on social media that Hampshire's flooding, they're not gonna bring in any people.
So I know it's not discussion, but I want to ask a question. So many of you, if you're on Facebook, saw I did a poll for something we're going to discuss later tonight, right? So I want to do a poll real quick. Can you raise your hands if you're a Hampshire resident, live in Hampshire? Okay. And hearing everybody with the flooding, those that raise their hands, how many of you would be supportive, help us market, and get the information out there, knowing that this year's budget, we went through 3 meetings where we cut 70% of the projects because we just didn't have the money to do the projects, right? So how many of you would help us market and get past a referendum to raise a property tax specific for infrastructure repairs if it meant it helped clear out the flooding?
Yeah, we need that one in the pool in high school.
Okay. Because that's, when we talk about different funding, one revenue is tax-backed bonds, which fail miserably in our community. The fire department couldn't get one passed the first time they tried. It took them 3 times to get one passed, and they're a fire department.
You just gotta put a double negative in there.
So, yeah, right. It's how you label it, I guess. So just know, those are like options that we're looking at. It's not that we're saying this project is the only one we're not doing. There was 75% of that list that were needed things in town where we just had to cut back and say we can't do it this year. But if the residents are saying this is a huge issue, we need to get fixed. I'm right there with you. I used to be on Grove. My basement flooded. Then we ended up with a sinkhole in the street by Baldwin and Grove. When they came out and fixed it because the pipe had collapsed, they found out the pipe was 80% clogged. When it cleaned and cleared out, never again did we ever have an issue. So that was the pipe didn't have anywhere for it to go, so it found the next lowest place, right? So that fixed it. So I know your pain. I've been there. I've replaced my basement. I've replaced mechanicals. I've done that. I also have seen our budgets and know that while I want everything in the older community to be fixed, because I also drive around, and none of the newer communities did I see some of the issues, and Lakewood I don't see the issues, and Crown I don't, because they have either retention ponds or newer infrastructure, right? So we need more infrastructure. We need to get it fixed. But if we go to a referendum to try to get taxes passed, just to say that's all it's gonna pay for, it's just that, it's just enough to fix our infrastructure, and it fails because the community doesn't wanna do it, we're gonna be back in the same boat. So we would need the help of people that experience this issue to say, no, we need to come together as a community, just like we're talking about for businesses, to find this potential revenue. And that's just one that Jake can look into. But that's why I wanted to ask the question, because here, when I was on the park board, when I watched the fire department do it multiple times, referendums for taxes here fail miserably. Miserably. And so we would need the entire community to come together to try to get one passed. And I think that could give us some of the money that we need sorely to be able to do that. So don't be surprised, those that raise their hands, if we come to you at some point in the future and say we need your help. Because then that gives us the power to help you and fix the 10 inches of water on the road and the continuation.
And I have a favor for all residents in town. This doesn't necessarily help you, Ramsey, but I live on Panama. And I'm a real estate agent and I sold myself a house on Panama. Keep your storm drains clear. Like I clean out, I have like 4 storm drains
That's in our
around my house.
monthly, that's in our monthly
And I clean them
newsletter.
out all the time.
I am out there all the time clearing it, even in lightning storms, to make sure it's
I went
clear.
out and I
That's
made
the
sure
first
that
thing I'm
all the
doing.
storm drains were clean. It helps tremendously.
Some areas, like you said, some areas it may not make a difference, but there are
Right.
others.
Yours, it won't make.
We get everybody's.
I know.
I'm in a different area now.
I've seen
The neighbor
water
didn't
shoot
clear their
up
drain.
to half out of the storm lines at the bottom of the hill.
Self-cleaning option, right?
Yes, I mean,
Linda,
Okay. I have a comment from Anthony and Ashley Lewis. They live at 212 East Jefferson Avenue. Can the village help the houses on this block of Jefferson with flooding issues due to sewers not being in curbs and over rain with water? We are lowest point of the street and everything pools in front of our house. We have currently lived in this house for coming up to 5 years. Almost every year we flooded at least once, sometimes more. The sewer is in the middle of the parkway and bubbles up. The water ends up pooling and not going down the sewer because the system is already overran with other water. So this causes water to go into our basement. We have recently landscaped to try and do something on our own, but hasn't solved the problem. Would the village be able to help us and our neighbors as they get water occasionally too? We get the most of it in our house. We have 2 children that are younger, and on several occasions, my husband wasn't home. It was only because our community, I was able to fix the problem. Hopefully with your help, this will not happen frequently or at all. Thank you, Ashley Lewis.
what, 211?
212 East Jefferson.
We have,
212, we're 212.
For 212.
We're on this call.
or curbs, we put curbs on, no, is that what they said, there's curbs with no drains?
There's no
No,
curbs.
there's no curbs.
There's no curb.
Oh, I thought it was
He lives
curbs
in
with
the
no
old part of
drains.
town.
We have drains,
Right.
but it's in the middle of our parkway, so the
That's why I
water
was
has.
confused, I'm like, wait, what? So my notes are wrong, okay.
You have another one?
We're on this
It
call.
is from Casey Zekapanicki. She's a Lakewood Crossing. She's asking for additional stop signs. My name is Casey Zekapanicki, and I am a resident in the north side of Lakewood Crossing subdivision on Penney Road. I would like to address the safety of the children in the neighborhood. Cars have been speeding upwards of 45 miles per hour on both sides of the street, Penney Road and on Cameron Street, since I moved into the neighborhood 5 years ago. The posted limit is 25 miles per hour.
Jamie
Both
Mowers.
Sections are
Is
also
now exiting.
have upwards of the 10 grade school children standing at them during the school year. I am proposing that we add additional stop signs at both intersections of the 2 streets, making them a 3-way stop so that people do not treat these roads as exit ramps out of our subdivision. If they,
Cameron and what?
Huh?
Cameron and what?
Pending.
And they,
If they had to come to a full stop both times, coming from both directions, it would significantly reduce their speed as they pass our homes and make our section of the neighborhood significantly safer. I know that my neighbors share the same concern as I, constantly am hearing them yelling at the cars from their driveways to slow down. There really is no legitimate reason not to address these additional stop signs, as nearly everyone in my neighborhood has young children under the age of 5. Please let me know if you would like a petition to add these stops from neighbors of the subdivision with their signatures, or what can I do to take the next steps of getting this done sooner or later? Thank you for your time. Kind regards, Casey.
Chief, is camera in our jurisdiction?
Yes.
Yeah. I have one more. I'm not sure if you're gonna address it. Aaron, it's from Nathan.
Oh, about the outside?
Yeah,
That's gonna be under new business.
okay. Okay, so I'll take that.
Yeah, did he want that? Because I know your copy, that wasn't to be read like
I'm
during
sorry,
public comment, the outdoor eating.
I wasn't sure.
Nate Loman sent an
Oh,
email.
no, he was just.
That's just for new business for us to discuss, yeah. He was just asking to have it on the agenda. I like the passion.
Any more?
What is the exclamation
Say it,
mark?
Linda.
That's it, sorry.
All right.
Mayor?
Sorry, go ahead. You have something?
I was just gonna move on with the agenda if that's what you were ready to do.
We're not in the minutes first. What do you want to do with the
No,
agenda?
go right ahead. Please.
Everybody should have the meeting minutes from May 7th, 2020. Please review those for any changes, additions, corrections. There are no changes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So move.
Second.
Linda?
Down, it's here, it's over there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Hedges?
Mr. Mayor, we have a presentation by Mike Gazzola regarding the proposed Hampshire 90 Logistics Park preliminary plan presentation. Mike would like to make some comments, and then I'll share some a video with you as well.
Where should I use?
I think you can stand right where you are, Mike.
Thanks. Good to see you all again. I'm back again. This time it's a little different. ECR Acquisitions, which is Entree Commercial, is Mike and I, it's our company. Mike's a partner. We acquired the Leone property and the Flanagan property here back in March. Wasn't that lucky? And we've been planning since then the Hampshire 90 Logistics Park, which is a trucking warehouse industrial type park on 85 acres. We will be the developer. We are the contract buyers for the property. And so what I want to do is I want to show you a marketing video that we prepared, and we'll go through that a little bit. And then I'm going to have Mike DeSerto go through a few of the concepts. We have 3 ideas, and they are just ideas right now, is what could happen out there from big to small. So bear with us, take a look at this video. It really explains a lot, and then we'll go into the concepts.
Is it there?
It's on the screen.
Is it up?
No, it's not.
Were the pictures up a minute ago?
They're up right now.
Pictures up.
It's just taking a while for it to catch up, I guess.
No, you shared Adobe, but you didn't share your browser. You gotta mute your microphone. It's not playing like it was earlier. All we see is Adobe. Jay.
Bear with me a second.
No, it's just Adobe.
I don't think we're gonna be able to show the video.
Right, so
Like everybody looks.
It's Aaron's problem.
Here.
I'll send a link out to the rest of the trustees and they can watch it so we can.
Yeah. So it's basically like that.
Yeah.
Have that water in there.
Yes, there's a water cooler.
You want to pull up just the concept plans now?
Wait, is that now?
No, the concept plans work, but now.
We can just go through the concept plans, we can flip over the link. I think you
But
guys
we
have the
some
link
in
that you
our
can.
packet, too. There you go, now it's on, your concept plan.
That's where it was like one large building, multiple buildings, 3 and then.
Share the screen.
Linda knows everything, I'll make sure.
You wanna come around here, Mike, and just look at the screen and tell us?
Yeah, I'll give you guys a quick little overview here. Oh, sorry. So if you go down to the second page, we put together kind of 3 concepts. And we base these based off of kind of what we have seen in the marketplace and the demand down the I-90 corridor, which is the golden corridor for the industrial market.
Are you seeing this now, Mike?
Yes.
Yes. If we go up to, there should be a concept before that one. Go up one more. Nope, okay, never mind. All right, so this would be for like your e-commerce plan. This would be your Amazon, Wayfair, Megabox. We don't see that being the highest plan. However, there are very few interchanges that currently have the land mass that would be needed to put up a 1 million square foot building. So we wanted to show that and to our conceptual model that would allow for some of the larger e-commerce, which would bring a ton of jobs, good tax revenue. It would be really good for the village to land something like that, but we also believe that our other concepts are also going to bring a lot of jobs as well. So we will be marketing that to some of the larger corporate e-commerce companies. If we go down to the second one here, this is a 3 building concept. This would be more of your standard distribution. Oh, sorry, you want me to stand back? This is a 3 building concept. It's 256,000 square foot buildings. These are cross-dock buildings, not with shared courts. They are all independently. You'll see one common theme in each one of these plans, and that's a small set of buildings right off of Route 20, US 20, lined with, I believe it'd be Higgins there, which we would try to align the best we can with the realignment of Higgins that I believe the village has seen a number of times throughout our developments in Hampshire Woods. We would probably look at doing a truck center there to add on to the other 6 that you all have already. If that wasn't a hot winter for the project, we'd probably just go into just another industrial type, smaller last mile distribution building. But certainly our architects and engineers thought that that would be a good idea to put some sort of a retail type space up in the front. I know Jay had mentioned to us a little bit, maybe about a hotel, things like that. We don't believe that the demographics or the studies would pan out for that, but another avenue to certainly explore. We can go down to the third concept, which we think is probably the most viable and really is what got us geared onto this property. The third concept is going to be a 100,000 square foot truck, it's a truck terminal. Much like you see for Dayton Freight, that truck terminal is going to be 136 doors, one of the larger ones out here west. And then it would have 3 last mile distribution facilities at 128,000 square feet, also cross-docked on all of our type facilities. Along with the retail component, you'll see in the back there, we do have a truck and trailer parking lot that is always in demand. We are working on a development currently in Hampshire Woods that was all brought to you last year. We're actually getting in final approval for that and hope to get that building up this year for a truck maintenance and trailer parking build. Happy to open it up for any questions that may be there. We put plenty of detention there, working with our engineers right now to certainly hopefully have enough detention on site to keep from any flooding issues to your village. Any particular questions?
We're gonna start building.
We're probably gonna hold off for a substantial user, 25 acres or so of the site before we start breaking ground on it. But we'll certainly keep you this summer. Yep, we got probably a June breaking ground.
Take a break, Mike. Here you go.
Oh, no, there you go. Save me, Jay.
It's a summary video. Is that your music? I didn't think so.
That's definitely not our music.
But I like it.
I'm afraid it might show up on YouTube.
We might change that up, actually.
We've been drinking a little too heavy when we put that together.
Okay, good,
Just last comments while that's playing. We've hired Heitman Architects to work with us. They're the ones that prepare the video and all the plans. And we have Jacob and Hefner as our civil engineer, and they're studying the preliminary engineering right now. Because as you know, that's not a flat site out there. And so we've walked it, we've worked it. I've been at it 28 years plus. So hopefully we'll be back with some more preliminary engineering where we'll tweak things. I've also talked a little with the mayor and with Jay and with Mark on zoning and use, so that together we'll figure out how to best do that out there to streamline that.
Yeah, we are extremely excited about the project. Hope to land one of those larger users and start groundbreaking and bring a bunch of jobs into the neighborhood.
Have you done estimations or modeling for increased traffic?
We have not done a traffic study yet. I know that we.
That will be a part.
Yeah, that would be certainly a part of it.
Because what we'll be doing is we're using Gas Road as a main entryway, an extension through, and then Higgins Road will be the secondary. So we're gonna have to do our traffic studies and all kinds of high down stuff.
And a lot of that's gonna be user driven too. Based on.
You would have trucks going down Higgins Road? I don't think they'd go down.
No. They'll come out of our site
It's a real
where
line.
Higgins would.
Oh, I got what you're saying. So you'd have two in-outs.
Yeah.
I just know, like, with your concept 3, you're talking about a cross-dock terminal. They only make money if they have trucks come in and out every day, right? And multiple 100 trucks, right? And so when you're adding that kind of traffic to a 2-lane road like 20, I'm just wondering what that does. I think it's great at the potential for the revenue. I just wonder what that ends up doing for people trying to get to 90 that are using 20, the traffic that's already at 20. So I'd be interested to see what kind of.
And I'm sure IDOT would make them improve 20.
Okay, I mean, that would be my guess, but you can't widen under the bridge.
Correct. Yeah, it's all in the nitty gritty and the fun part of the development.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, appreciate all your time.
Thank you, sir. Do we
Thank you,
have, put this up on our website, the video?
Yeah, that's fine.
Fantastic.
Appreciate all your time.
Gentlemen?
Mayor, we have an ordinance granting a variation for the property at 220 Kai's Avenue in the village to allow for landscape screening in lieu of fencing required for the outdoor storage yard on the premises. Mark? Mr. Schuster?
Yes. Good evening. This ordinance for variation will depend on your action on the next ordinance, which is first to rezone it to the M2 and General Industrial District. Then there would be a variance to allow a substitution of landscape screening in lieu of the fencing requirement for outdoor storage. The proposed user is a landscape business. At the ZBA meeting, he said he would put some sort of gate at the front of the rear yard, but then for storage of materials and equipment and his vehicles, he would prefer, since he's in that business, to use landscape materials to screen that storage yard. So that's the variation that he's looking for, but of course, that's a moot point if you don't approve item C to rezone the property for his type of use altogether.
He wants to use this landscape materials as a fence?
Yes. Well, correct. It's the purpose of the fence is for screening of his items. He says he can accomplish that as well or better with landscape materials. He is not concerned about security that the fence might, augment because he said he'll have cameras for his rear yard at all times anyway.
I'd be more concerned with stuff blowing and washing out in the street.
Well, that's a different. Toby, here was his comment about that. For his materials, he's going to have some sort of, as I heard him say it, some sort of concrete bays at the north or the rear of his property, and that will create a concrete barrier on that side of the property by putting those side by side for stone or wood chips. I'm not sure exactly all the things he might store back there. But that's what would go at that location. So I guess we're just talking about the two sides to have some landscaping. You may want some landscaping to tone down those storage bays as well. I don't know. We haven't seen a site plan yet to determine the full extent of his plan.
What was the recommendation of the zoning board?
Zoning board recommended in favor.
So they're in favor and they didn't see a site plan?
They saw.
There's just there's no site plan.
There is a site plan.
There is a site.
We don't have that luxury of viewing.
The site plan is under review by the building department. Still, the permit hasn't been issued yet, till the property's zoned into the village.
It's right now office space, so the site plan would be denied under the current zoning.
I think the first thing we have to decide is whether to go from B4 to M2, correct, Mr. Schuster?
Yes. Yeah, these should have been flipped on the agenda.
That seems to make sense to me. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but M2 seems to fit there.
It was before she made it before.
Yeah.
For the district. It goes down to.
All right, any questions on the zoning?
Nope.
Ms. Klein would like to be omitted from roll call. Sure. All right, then I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 20-15, an ordinance amending the zoning classification of the property at 220 Keyes Avenue from B4 Office Business Zoning District to M2 General Industrial Zoning District.
So moved. Second.
Got it, Rob. All right. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr. Krajewski?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
Motion passed 5.
Any questions on the screening? So on the site plan, is he like using large evergreens? I mean, what is in lieu of the fencing screening look like?
They would be 8-foot evergreens, 8 to 10 feet tall.
Bushes, intermixed.
And they're staggered,
Rows.
You really can't stuff throughout it all.
Us, we should have an idea of the site plan. It's not in our packet.
Can we table it until we see a site plan?
We shouldn't be looking at something like this without a site plan. It's
I agree with Toby.
ridiculous.
Yeah. And the comment that was made here, Ryan and Eric, I don't know if you can hear, but when we do the zoning stuff, don't we get the actual zoning board packet that comes?
Findings of fact.
Typically, you get finding of fact.
Just their finding of facts, we don't get the site plan or what they used to make the determination or the evidence that was provided to them.
Well, we should
Brought
have
it, sorry.
the site plan. So we know.
Well, I mean, we can approve it on, nobody's lying, so we can approve it. But
Is
in the future,
GRI looking at this? Jay, or me? Plan Resources reviewing this? Who's reviewing it?
It will be, the building department is not referred to yet. I can probably pull up the site plan if you want to get it. If you want,
No, I just seeing in the zoning board packet. It was great. I mean, it's his business, it's his landscape, and that's what he does.
I mean, I'm guessing it's gonna look better than a chain link fence anyway.
Correct.
I agree.
Definitely.
Seems like a better solution, really.
Is everybody comfortable moving forward with the screening?
It's still have glass building and building.
Right. All right, then I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 20-16, an ordinance granting a variation from the property at 220 Keyes Avenue in the village to allow for landscape screening to fencing required for outdoor storage yard on the.
I'll make your motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Please.
Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Mr. Gajeki?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-1.
Mr. President, the next item on your agenda is an ordinance that would vary the community graphics requirements for the Thornton's project on US Highway 20. As you know, the Thornton's company is undertaking a redevelopment of, I guess I refer to it as a Shell station. It's been had a number of different iterations over time, but it's the one at the corner of Dietrich and US 20. And part of that is they submitted a comprehensive sign package, not unlike what Speedway or Love's has submitted. For example, they want a little bit higher freestanding signs. And because of the gasoline and diesel canopies and the fact that 3 additional businesses may locate onto that property, they were looking for some relief on the wall signs. The sign company is Modern Signs. Is Mr. DiFiore with us tonight?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there he is. So if you have any questions, the sign designer is here to address those. And this would, this ordinance would allow for that different type of signage at the truck stop area, consistent with what you've allowed for other users.
Question about the signage?
Are any signs planned to be higher than any existing sign? Well, no, I mean Love, if is it higher than the Love sign? Is it higher than those other ones that have variants?
Well, all the rest of them are 80-foot limit and they're requesting 100 feet.
No, I'll have variance.
The ordinance is 80, everyone else has a variance, so they're asking for the same
I think
variance.
the Love's is up and higher, if not higher.
Is the height of this sign higher than any existing signs, gentlemen? The Love sign, the TA, the Road Ranger?
Did you consider that, Mr. DiFiore, what the heights of any of those other signs in the area are?
I cannot answer factually, but to the best of my knowledge, they are the same height. They've all been at 100 feet, as they've all required variances.
Right.
And we only have one sign that would be that high.
Can you help me understand what the variance for wall signage means?
You can speak to that. Ernie, go ahead.
Yes, what we're looking for, we have 3 separate buildings on site, and the ordinances only allow for one sign for each street frontage. However, we have 3 separate buildings and there will be additional tenants who are moving in. So we're looking for signage on each of the canopies and on the building. And in future, the total signage would be 10 separate signs, separate wall signs, 3 of which would be for future tenants.
Okay, but only one of, so that's the wall signs, then there's only one that would be at that 100-foot level.
Yes, there would be one highway freestanding sign, which would be 100 square feet, or excuse me, 100 feet tall and 675 square feet of signage. We also look for 2 freestanding pole signs where you allow only one. One of our freestanding pole signs would be for Thornton's, which would be a pricing sign, and the other would be for the cat scales.
Okay. Thank you.
All the entire sign package is the same type of sign package that Thornton's puts in anytime they put in this type of project.
So it'd be no different than the one at 90 in Rockton Road at the state line, is that accurate?
Exactly, yes.
That doesn't look bad.
Yeah, every time
It looks like right
I
now.
look at the signs.
Yeah, we should.
When this was brought forward for the Loves, we had drawings of the time.
Mr. President, the sign allowed at Love's was 100 feet high. Okay, I haven't been able to check Speedway yet, but the variation that Love sought was for one 100-foot freestanding sign.
I think something that caught my attention is he said 10 total signs. And maybe I missed this in my reading of it. How many signs would normally be allowed on that property? I know there's 3 buildings, one's got street frontage, but under normal conditions, if we didn't grant a variance, how many total signs would there be?
Ernie, can you answer that?
I cannot. Not accurately. I do know that the ordinances allow for 1 wall sign per street front exposure. They also talk about how much footage is allowed. And because we're looking for more signs as we have more buildings and bigger buildings, I don't believe that your ordinances take into effect the size of the buildings we're looking at and the fact that we're going to have multiple buildings on site.
I would agree, not specifically, but how many street frontages then do you have? 3 times 2? Right? 3 buildings facing Dietrich and or US 20, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, that's what I assume. So that's 6. I think your answer, Mr. Krajewski, is 6.
So we'd be moving from 6 to 10, adding an additional 4 signs.
Right. Now, we are actually looking for 7 Thornton signs. The other 3 signs are completely to be determined because we don't even know what tenants will be there. So what we're just trying to do is make arrangements for future tenants to be able to get a sign of their own. And if you look at the site plan, you can see that the Thornton signs are not in abundance. There's only 1 sign to each elevation.
My only concern was the real tall one, because I know we got a lot of flack for those from the communities on the other side of 90. But we've already approved things like that, so that's one. Seeing that TA is in front of that property, the street facing signs aren't gonna shine into anybody's residential property. At least it doesn't look like they would.
No, there's a sign there already. The existing.
I don't think it's a 100-foot sign.
It's pretty close.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we've already approved that for other businesses, so we are not going for that.
Done it very well.
Here's what. I look for the zoning board on the motion.
Motion?
Yeah.
Make it?
Yeah.
Let them talk now. Or motion. Says a lot of citizen comments we ever had.
In the future, we get these illustrations in the packet.
It would be helpful.
Yeah, I would agree. I really don't know what we're looking at here. I
But
mean,
if you want to know what you're looking at, you can go to the village website. It's in the zoning board packet.
it's on the zoning board. Okay.
That's where I found it. That's what we're kind of looking at up here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the 100-foot sign, I kind of came in figuring. It was the 10 signs. That I missed that.
If you look at the package which was submitted on the site plan, each sign is it's represented by an alphabetical letter. F would be the 100-foot pylon sign, which would be on Dietrich Road. And in the beginning of that package is a list of variations requested, which describes what is allowed and what we're looking for. Much of what we're looking for is really allowed under special permit usage. Like our pole signs are all within the realm. Our 100-foot sign is taller than it's allowed. However, the square footage of the sign is smaller than what is allowed. And each sign, if you look at the site plan, again, is labeled with an alphabetical letter. And then as you go through the package, that sign is completely broken down, even as far as installation, showing which sign is which. B, 1, 2, and 3, and H are all the signs, extra signs, part of what I've asked for that will be provided by others.
See that, Randy? Figure it out.
Yeah. All right, I'll second the motion.
All right. Any questions or comments? 17, madam?
Sir. Yes.
Reading what's in black or what's in red here? Let me see here.
Yeah, that was a weird thing too.
Why did we get the red line capping?
What?
Why did we get that?
I don't know why we got a red line cap. I don't know.
We shouldn't have.
From the Red Ox in 2008. What?
What?
What are you looking at?
We have,
In our packet, it's a
In our
red
In our
line.
packet, it's a red line copy of ordinance 20 something. That was originally done for Red Ox Restaurant Bar and Grill.
Yeah. Dimitri, $10.
Yep.
That's for the outdoor seating.
So what I have here, I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 20-17, an ordinance varying the community graphic requirements for certain property at 19N 479 US Highway 20 to be developed as an automobile gas station and truck stop facility.
I so move.
We already motion and second.
Yeah, Toby first and Aaron
Oh,
second.
all right.
Eric got it first.
Well, all right, Eric got it first.
All right.
Toby?
Eric, Toby.
Eric.
Toby.
E-Rob.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Gajeki?
No,
Mr. Cole?
Aye.
Ms. Klein?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
Motion passed 5 nays. Motion passed 5.
I do want to make a comment, just so that we're, and I know why Ryan voted the way he does, and I agree with him. I have to say that if we get another zoning board appeal or zoning board information and there's not a design in it, my vote, I don't care how great it is gonna be a no.
that's why I voted no.
That's what I'm saying. I recognize
Really
it.
look at it. 10 signs sounds like a lot to me, so that's it. I'm looking at it now, but I mean, I got minutes to look at it.
I see somebody has a packet.
All right.
That's okay, I'm just putting it out there.
I should have said.
Don't let it happen again.
Yeah. All right.
My bad.
Thank you very much for your consideration. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good evening, sir.
You have a good evening.
Here we now have an ordinance establishing regulations governing mobile food vendors in the village. And Attorney Schuster has provided a draft as well as an agenda supplement. What we did here was we tried to reach consent. We tried to draw some consensus from your conversation at the last meeting. So I think we've made this a lot simpler than it was before. And it's not redlined, at least this one's not. Sorry about the previous one. And so a couple of the key points here is the 150 feet distance from existing restaurants, brick and mortar restaurants. I believe that is somewhat of a consensus from the last time. Food trucks would be allowed on public property. At the last meeting, you said that that would be on village property only with the permission of the village manager. I think those are really the primary points. You did discuss the last time that they would have the option to park as well on park district property, that we would not regulate that. So unless Mark has anything to add, I think it's Really for your debate and discussion.
No, I agree. We tried to synthesize the discussion from the last meeting and put it
Unknown
into,
participant is
capture
now
it. for your
exiting.
review tonight.
The one thing that Mark left out because he did not think there was consensus is, was the annual fee. I think you'd come pretty close to $100 was the fee. There has been discussion about more or less than that. Mark, you did not put that in the ordinance at this point, right?
I did, that's correct. It's my recommendation that you don't codify that, but leave yourself more flexibility to change that from time to time as you go along with this with this license. So the regulations will be in village code. The license fee you can look at annually or whatnot without a new ordinance, and just with all your other fees, adjust it as you wish by a motion and vote. But we can put it in the ordinance if that's your desire, certainly.
So what time would, when would we adopt the $150 fee? Because it says separate motion, but I don't see it as the ordinance or a resolution, right? We put it in our fee structure.
Lynn Hacker.
Well, I think
Is
you
now
do-
joining.
If your concern is that you want a
Lynn
specific agenda
Hacker.
listing, then do it at your next meeting.
Next meeting?
Is now exiting.
Can we go through some of these?
Yes.
Public property, the consensus seems to be allowed food trucks on public property.
Yeah.
Like parking lots or the streets? Public streets.
Yes, the answer is yes, but it has to be approved by the village. I mean, right now, it's written as village manager, so, which I'm okay with.
For the record, that was not my idea.
You know, put the burden on you though.
We made it, all right, yeah.
I just want everybody to remember that.
I think we talked about it the last meeting, was like the parking lot on Park and what is that? Rin, the parking lot over near the post office, places like that that could allow a food truck or food trucks to be at.
We don't have anything on in the ordinance that states how many trucks we can have.
Yeah, it's in there. It says, limit on number, it's limited by ordinance. So you can pass an ordinance to say we're only gonna issue 10 licenses or 5 licenses or whatever. That's, what is that, C? Page 2.
Lynn Hacker.
Is now joining.
Yeah, I was with Toby a little bit on that, as I think that there was some push for the public land, but I'm against that personally. But there was quite a bit of discussion. I don't know that we ever came to consensus necessarily on that.
The consensus was we would allow it, the village manager would have to approve it.
No, I remember that was suggested. I don't know that, yeah, fine.
So how would
That was consensus board.
How would Kane County, would they have to drop off a current Kane County Health Department clearance before they begin operations in food zone?
Like for the, as part of the application process, you mean?
I would guess they'd have to give you a copy of their Kane County Health Department.
Kane County just doesn't, Burritoville, they just don't certify once a year. Annoying thing.
Right.
Oh, I understand.
So I think it's a yearly application.
I get that.
So you're saying that at the time.
What I'm saying is, March, they bring all their stuff in. Are they gonna come in June? Is somebody in the village gonna require them to give a current Kane County update health certification?
Well, we don't do that with current restaurants either. So that's what that really, I'm with you in the fact that they should have to present one to get the application, to get their license, if you will. But then at that point, it's between them and the health department.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. The health department, though, will send inspectors to make sure there's a valid health certificate. They have to have it displayed on their truck.
Like, I think, was it you that brought this up, because in the original ordinance, it was like that we were regulating certain things and we didn't want to get into too much of the nitty gritty because that's the health department's job.
Yeah, we took all that out.
Yeah. Which made it a lot shorter ordinance.
We just don't regulate health.
Right.
Restaurants or food trucks.
Sorry.
Right, so you just won't issue any license if they don't have a Kane County Health Department license first.
Yeah.
Correct.
Is
So
that,
it'll be the application.
that's something that we would specify in the application or the ordinance?
On the application.
Could be added to the application.
And it's also in the ordinance. It says all mobile food vendors shall at all times comply with the applicable rules and regulations of the Kane County Health Department. You can't open a food establishment without a license. So if they didn't have a license and they were a food truck, they're not in,
You shut them down, issue them a citation, correct?
Right.
Talking about the 150 feet, does that applies for public, private, anything, right? So then we're eliminating allowing the cave to have a food truck.
I just did it on Google Maps from Rose Garden, which is the closest physical. It's 200 feet to the gravel lot, and that's the closest part.
I would have said it was shorter.
So I just did on Google Maps to measure distance, and I'm like, it's actually 220 something feet.
Look at this handy dandy little map that was made the last
Yeah, I was
time.
searching for that, I couldn't find
I
it.
use technology.
Gosh, you sure.
One of the questions I had last time, and it doesn't look like it changed, and that's okay if that's where the board wants it. We have that the license for the food truck shall be between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. And I know there was a conversation of, we potentially have businesses like the Cave, Minahans, places that are just alcohol that may want them to close, and if they have a liquor license till 1 a.m., do we allow a food truck out there, especially if, like with the Copper Barrel, if their kitchen closes at 10 or 11, maybe it's a food truck is there from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. to fill in a gap when we don't have a kitchen open in the downtown area.
That was one that we really did not have a consensus on.
Okay.
I'd like to allow that will be, what I attempted to do is do common practice now. You know, they sometimes come in for coffee in the morning.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
here typically. Some of the residents. That would be entirely up to the board.
Okay.
Well, they're not allowed to cause a ruckus.
Okay, but it will be, so Richmond wants to have a food truck. Are we considering Dunkin' Donuts another restaurant?
Well, that's the issue. That's the issue I have with that 150-foot radius, is it effectively eliminates that kind of stuff.
Are we gonna approve that?
Right, there's somebody that sits up at this dais that was very much opposed to.
I saw those.
Any names?
If I could just jump in on just one quick thing, obviously, I know I'm in the minority position, but I still think the timing of this is bad, just given the pandemic and all the pressure that's being put on our local restaurants. Certainly, I can appreciate Gina's position with the Cave and David's position in trying to generate business for their places, but I certainly appreciate that. I think Michelle's suggestion of maybe partnering with brick and mortar, at least during this time, is an alternative. I think is more favorable than just inviting outsiders at this point. But to not do the 150 feet, I think, I just think we have to preserve some protection for a brick and mortar, specifically during a time when they're under incredible pressure. At the very least. Right, I would be, against it I'm against it anyways, but.
Past pandemic, what does 150 feet look like? And
So from the door.
I got it, but.
No, from the door of
The circle
Dunkin',
remains the same.
the gas station, because they're on the left side of that building, right?
Right.
I don't think it's fair to say that entire building counts as that, because the right side is Minahans, the middle is a little ATM, and then you have a gas station, Dunkin'. So from the Dunkin', middle of that part of the building to the edge of the parking lot is 143.6 feet. So if they did it.
The edge of the
at-
parking lot at Gethsemane
In
Road?
front of Minahans is 143. So if they went back up to the little corner of that parking lot, they're over 150 feet. If they go to Henpeck, they're over 150.
I have concerns like what if, we're passing this ordinance and we're looking at 150 feet as it looks today to your point. And that's with the current restaurants in place. If there's a restaurant that opens up where Palazzolo used to open up, that would push your 150-foot radius to that gravel lot off. If a restaurant opens up in State Street, in the old hardware store, or in the former glory of what was a Country Cafe or whatever it was, also known as Ella Johnson Library, I mean, that ordinance is gonna.
Country Lounge.
Country Lounge, I'm sorry. The restaurant that was Ella Johnson's. And I just think that if you place these restrictions and another restaurant opens up, I'm all in support of brick and mortar, but and I love Michelle to death, and you know this, but I'm in support of all of the businesses. And if
You think bringing a food truck into town is gonna light Hampshire on fire? Honestly.
So
No.
the Ace Hardware building, does.
I wanted everything.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The Ace Hardware to the gravel lot is 151.2. Technology.
No way, because that Ace Harbor building goes all the way down.
It goes three
I'm
buildings.
doing it from where nobody's going into the Ace Hardware alley, it's restaurant.
The front
Doing it
door
from
to
the front door.
Is that what we're calling front door to front door?
That's what I'm measuring, because how is the end edge of a building going that you don't enter?
Hey, I don't know these rules.
No, that's how I've been measuring it, is where would somebody go into the business? Where would they see a sign? Where would they go into the Copper Barrel? Where would they go into the Rose Garden? Versus where would they see a food truck?
I just know that,
No, I think we need 150 feet. I mean,
I just feel
the
that,
whole idea is to grow more businesses, so if your food truck guy wants to open up a restaurant,
like what happened in Genoa.
that's a coffee spot, if you wanted to move in, do you want a food truck that, because it was
You told me
grandfathered in?
that there was a coffee truck that
Can I
started
just,
out?
can I just tell you that coffee truck did buy that house and it now has a food truck sitting outside offering around.
Yeah, I think I agree with Ryan, I agree that 150, I think, still gives the leeway to allow partnerships with businesses that don't sell food, protects brick and mortar locations that do sell food, and there are enough options throughout town that if something opened up and it makes it within 120 feet, then we just look for a creative where the hell you park it, right? I don't know that if the cave is going to do, to your point earlier, Mike, if the cave's gonna do a special event and they have to work it out with Jay that the food truck parks in the public parking lot near the post office because another restaurant moved in that made it within that 150 feet. Walking right next to GABR it's like a 2-second walk. I don't think it's that big of a deal if it's not right outside the door, if that were to ever happen, right? To your point of future. I think if we go 50 feet or something less, then you run into the risk of.
I just hate passing stuff like that without having any type of view of the future, right? But that's what we're trying to do.
We're supposed to have a view of the future.
The governor said today that his work in 3 months is done in 1 business day today.
So to your point of the 10
hours.
The 10 PM,
Yeah,
I would be comfortable with midnight.
yeah, I'd be okay with that.
You guys closed kitchen at 9, 10 o'clock, or?
During the week at 10 and then.
And there's nothing open at 10 o'clock here minimum,
No.
except for maybe the Red Ox, but that's not even, no, Red Ox
No, you
closes at
just-
10 too.
Yeah, I've been on the wrong side of that.
Yeah, I think midnight's, gives that leeway that a busier time at a bar can still partner.
That night's way too late. Sounds like this does backfire.
Taco Bell's open late for good reason.
Mike, you pull into a drive-through at Taco Bell, Al. You don't go to a Mexican restaurant or a burrito bill where the generator's running and you can hear them clanging stuff when it's dead silent. Okay? There's a big difference, big difference.
And Burrito generator's loud.
And it don't matter if it's burrito bill or
So-
Yankee bill.
So,
Any food truck.
Generator's loud, but you know what? When there's dead silence and they're clanging dishes, you're gonna hear it. Taco Bell's on Route 47. You're not gonna hear it.
how do you
It's
feel
a
about
traffic.
10 o'clock, midnight, noise complaints and that kind of thing?
Depending on what area, really. You know, if you're talking in residential, it's probably gonna be allowed. And it will carry.
I know that they have some quiet generators, but those aren't probably the ones on the food truck.
No, and I mean, do we put something in that it can't be in a residential
Can we
area?
say their generators can't be on it? Then you have the ice cream trucks too that are following.
Oh, that's right.
Hey, if there's an ice cream truck driver on midnight, he better have a 5-0 on him. Because something ain't right.
We shut our outdoor music off at 10 o'clock.
I can hear your music from my house on White Oak. I can hear their music.
How come you can't hear us talking to you across the bay?
I can hear their music on my backyard.
Yeah. I was just putting it out there because a lot of times those food vendors serve that purpose of when there's nothing else in town to get. There's now food that you can get.
And there's no way we can put in the ordinance, right, that says that they can't generate X amount of noise.
No.
I'm just throwing it out there. It's up to
No,
you.
noise complaint.
I don't know how they're gonna run their lights
Noise ordinance.
without the generator running.
Yeah, the generator has to run.
Oh, I know.
Right.
We've had actually, a lot of the food trucks ask us if they could plug into our electricity. If we had electricity on our lot instead of using the generators. Then for noise ordinance, at the cave, when we have special events and it gets kind of crazy inside and the doors open and people are going outside to smoke and things, we're right next to the residential area. And we've never, as far as I know, had a noise complaint.
I mean, to be that advocate, there is a difference between I moved in next to a bar and there's a food truck that happens to come by.
Maybe, around the corner. But you also have the rental, that Sure House across the street, so.
It's just new.
Okay. There's been a couple of complaints.
I'm okay with trying the midnight thing, but if it backfires, we can roll it back. But if you wanna leave it at 10, I'm not gonna die on this hill.
No, that's not.
Okay, so let's die on the 10 o'clock hill.
I'm not dying on any time. No, I'm just throwing it out there that I think, and you may not get a food truck that wants to be out that late.
Exactly.
How many people are gonna have a hot or a mobile food, anything?
Oh, if you've been in an establishment for a long time, you see it, it's like,
Greek music.
it's like it has halos.
I never went out to Galaxy. Never.
Really?
Never.
So we're changing it to midnight or keeping it at 10?
I'm good,
I vote 10.
I'm good at midnight, but I think Aaron and I are.
Mr. Collins?
I would prefer midnight, however, there's 3 people that have already said 10 o'clock.
Look.
And
Four.
it means Mr. Robinson, who hasn't spoken up
Vote your
yet.
conscience.
I'm for 10.
There's
10.
4.
10? 10? Ryan, did you say
10.
10? All right, 10 it is. Dave's a 10.
If any of you come up at Coon Creek and say, man, are any of these food trucks closed? After
You
10.
can say I told you so.
Yeah.
That'll be your purview.
Any other changes to the ordinance as written?
Okay, wait. You know, it's written again, 150 feet.
That's what's in the packet.
Just our discussion.
10 or 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah,
150 feet from the nearest property line
yeah,
of an existing restaurant.
so that's not right.
Can we say
Property
front
line
door?
instead versus front door.
Can you say front door in the ordinance?
This is the property line.
Well, I understand.
I would ask that be changed to main entrance.
150 feet of the main entrance of the parcel.
Yeah.
Of the restaurant.
Yeah, main entrance.
150 feet of the main entrance of any existing restaurant in the village. What I would like to have it said, but that's for discussion.
It also states that any mobile food vendor which applies to participate in an event sanctioned by the village may be exempted from the requirements with approval of the village manager. So the Coon Creek people could be exempted.
Yeah, because they already paid what we, for like $400 to be a part of that as it is, they don't need to pay for 4 days. So we would be sanctioning that.
Do we want to do anything about timing and waiting till they're open?
Do the pandemic.
Oh.
Well, we have to figure out ordinance first, and then we can talk about whether we want people to be able to get the like the applications to be approved now. Or wait.
Right. Interesting idea, actually, Christine. I like that.
The 150 feet right now doesn't preclude that gravel parking lot if it's a parcel. I just think in the future, like for Dunkin' Donuts, what do we consider the parcel? Is it the entire building? They only share a small portion of it.
That's why I lose sleep at night, I don't know.
Over Dunkin' Donuts.
That's why I would like it to say from the front door of any existing restaurant. The main entrance of any existing restaurant.
I like the main entrance idea because that opens it up.
I think the parcel, we start to get into debates on,
From what corner,
Like
what
Dunkin',
line,
how
what,
do you define Dunkin', what that parcel is? Because literally that building is the entire parcel. Well, the parcel's the parking lot too, right?
Yes.
yeah,
The legal
Because
definition of
it's a lot line, is what they were
Right.
originally.
So the main entrance, is that
That would be my suggestion for the board to consider.
Second.
So the only change, as written, would change the second line of F number 2, deleting nearest property line of a parcel and inserting main entrance. Correct?
50 feet of the main entrance of an existing restaurant in the village.
Okay.
That means
The $150 fee will be.
One other question. Is there anything in the ordinance that says how many times a week they can have special events with food trucks?
Well, these aren't considered, it's a license, there's not a
I get that.
considered a special event.
Okay.
So you mean like how many times they can show up to do business?
Well, I mean, you get essentially somebody here 7 days a week.
I think that's part of the application process for the consideration. I would guess.
Yeah, but he can't say no.
No, but we could put on the application that they can only come so many times a week.
One time a week.
Well, if you're gonna do that, you might as well get it in the ordinance, right?
And that's what they do with Burrito, just comes one day a week, right?
No, twice.
Twice,
They come twice.
Wednesday and Saturday.
you're missing out.
It's not on a Saturday.
Saturday Bruce.
They're a Bruce Ring during
So
the
they
week
don't go to
too,
the industrial
because
park
I gotta pick up
any other day, but
leftover
Wednesday?
burrito shells.
Wednesday's the only day.
I don't
That's
hang
the
out,
only day they go to the industrial
I
park.
don't hang out in the industrial park.
I do.
I think that's another good aspect of the food trucks that Kristen's talking about is the days that they're here, they also can go do the industrial park shops and food lunches to the people that,
They
all
do.
the businesses back there.
Yeah.
Fruitville does it, they do a lot of money back there. Just when they open in Bruce Green, they're already sold out of some stuff. Which is good. Because
And
they sold to our
The
businesses.
Wednesday after they were at the cave, they didn't go to the industrial parks because they were out of food, and the industrial people were.
Yeah.
We did have a lot of those industrial people come to our location.
Yeah.
On Tuesday. They just wanted to try.
Yeah, I think somewhere in the ordinance should spell out how many times a week they can come.
What would you suggest?
I don't know, but if it's open and they can come, every day, I'm absolutely against it.
Right.
Frickin' taco trucks and stuff flying in and out here every day. I'm totally against it. If we're gonna do this, think about it. The brick and mortar restaurants
Mhm.
need a weekend with nobody there. So they got a chance to make up the piddly that they lose during the lunch hour for the tacos
So what do you
and whatever.
suggest?
I don't know. But should that be allowed to be 7 days a week?
You could have the toasted cheese guy, you could have the Burritoville guy, you could have slow smoke, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I don't think you should have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I agree.
I agree 100%.
So hold on, there's a difference between what was just said and what I understand Toby's saying. I want to make sure I understand it right. One is in the ordinance, if you're Burritoville, we're going to limit the number of days a week you can be here. The other comment was just, we're going to limit the number of days a food truck can be here. And I'm okay saying a specific food truck can only be in town, let's say 2 days a week. But if there are 10 food trucks that get approved to come in here, and we've got a food truck here every day of the week. That's a different rule than just Burritoville only being two.
Then you're hurting the brick and mortar restaurants.
Too many.
Absolutely.
You're flooding the market and instead of them losing potentially 20 lunches twice a week, now they could lose hundreds of lunches every single day for the whole week.
Their own competition will run out. If there's 10 trucks, now 10 show up at one time, they'll run out 8 on that zone.
No, and 10 won't show up, but guess what? You'll get a burrito guy, then you'll get somebody that makes steak or something. Then there'll be another, and they'll start nipping away at the food, the restaurants, not the bars, the restaurants.
I think for the time being, with things the way they are right now, I think I totally agree with what Toby is saying. There should be a limit on how many days they can come, because until this thing gets sorted out, once this clears up and things go back to hopefully normal, then we can talk about lifting this and making it a 7-day-a-week thing. But right now, I totally agree with what Toby's saying.
Yep, me too.
That's more.
I'm fine with limiting a truck the total number of times. I'm not okay saying that as a community, we're only gonna allow trucks in our community 3 days a week or something.
Yeah, and I think the suggestion of 2 days a week seems pretty reasonable to me for any single truck to be there more than twice. It specifically at this time, I think 2 seems like a good number. Twice, 2 times a week, any truck can be there.
Yeah, if we're saying any single truck couldn't or business couldn't be here more than twice a week, I absolutely agree with that, because otherwise it's not variety, and I don't want you parking out for 7 days just bucking that you don't want to open a restaurant. It's cheaper than a food truck. But I also don't, if we get 8 food trucks that are interested in doing business in Hampshire, I don't want to tell one of them, no, I'm sorry, because we don't allow food trucks on Sunday.
But as to what Ryan's been saying all along, aren't you potentially chasing away another potential restaurant, another brick and mortar restaurant or bar restaurant? When they come in and they see you get
Yeah.
food trucks, because most restaurant tours are not gonna come into town, so it's nice to buy it. They're gonna come every day, or they're gonna hire people to sit and watch the demographics, the traffic, and they're gonna go back and report, you know, we had a Burritoville truck, now we've got this truck, and that truck. I understand, and I don't disagree with you. What I would say is that we got lucky that the Copper Barrel opened and took that space when Corkshire's owners retired. Palazzolo's has been open for I don't know how many years because they won't rent to anybody. The new restaurants, when they do come to town, are gonna be in the new strip mall off of 72, and they're gonna not care about a food truck at Bruce Ream or off of in a parking lot or over near the Cave or at Mayhan's, because they're getting so much damn traffic on 72 that's not even really Hampshire residents. They're gonna do traffic studies versus somebody trying to go for Palazzolo's place, who the guys are gonna rent to anyway.
Right, but if I
with you, but
sorry, it's hard to see from the video if you're done talking, I apologize, Aaron. But I still think that in some sense, one of the things that I've heard for 3 years, specifically working on this issue, specifically in the downtown, is we don't have enough rooftops, right? We can't attract certain types of restaurants. Now, while I don't necessarily totally agree with that 100%, but to disagree that there is competition and we do not have a huge demand base for that competition, supply base, excuse me, for that competition, my fear is, to Toby's point, and again, it's conjecture, but to say if there were 10 food trucks there, a potential restaurateur is going to look at the total number of rooftops that we have and then see those food trucks as people that are dipping into the total pie and will, make their ROI calculations accordingly. And I think that if downtown is an area that we're trying to generate, I think it's something that we need to keep in consideration. And I mean, through the pandemic, I think for sure we have to consider, how many we allow at once too. I mean, now I don't know that we're going to get 10 food trucks. We're not Seattle, we're not New York or Chicago. We don't have that population density. But still, at the same time, while people are trying to survive, to have a whole boatload of food trucks in there, I think is not in the interest of the long-term development of the downtown area.
If I might just add, we're doing a lot of things right now during the pandemic that are not by ordinance. So if you want to pass the ordinance without a restriction, I think we could limit that restriction. I know for a fact, Burritoville's been very cooperative every time we've asked them not to park in certain places without any ordinance, so. My suggestion would be not to pass an ordinance during the pandemic, for the pandemic, but pass it for what's going to be long-term, and we can do things by rule or by administrative, just by discussing with these people.
I could support that.
Yeah, I mean, they still have to have the approved application.
Well, even now, 8 weeks ago, they were parking in Bruce Stream, I just asked them not to go there, so he hasn't gone. They're very cooperative.
Yeah, I mean, you mean Hampshire. Yeah, and to your point, and to Ryan and Eric's point, I think there is a middle ground right now during this pandemic for somebody like the Cave to say only on Tuesday or maybe Monday or whatever day of the week it is. Just that one day that week, we want to be able to do it for this month, right? That's different than we're gonna have 7 food trucks in a parking lot 7 days a week, right? That's helping a brick and mortar, allowing it. You have the discretion to know what's best in this time to make sure that we're not screwing anybody over, but still helping other businesses, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree of not putting it in here and just leaving it up to an administrative.
We're gonna have to be making some accommodations for our brick and mortar restaurants in just a week, with the governor's new orders, right? We won't be able to pass an ordinance in time for that.
Right.
That is correct. All right, so, still, the only change, correct, is the main entrance. As the ordinance is written.
Then we measure 150 feet.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Anything else? All right, then I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 20-18, an ordinance adopting certain regulations governing the operation of mobile food vendors in the village with a change on page 2, section F, number 2, striking nearest property line of parcel and having, substituting that with main entrance, which is located in existing restaurant in the village.
This is, oh,
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll wait.
there's questions after.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Does this include ice cream trucks as well? Or that was a separate issue?
Ice cream trucks are,
Separate.
They're in the center,
Yeah, it references them, but they're defined differently. It's moving. Mark came up with a different word for ice cream.
It includes ice cream trucks.
But not with the same restrictions.
Uh,
question answers.
All of these terms and provisions apply to ice cream trucks and mobile food vendors, yes.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson? Mr. Robinson?
You're muted.
Oh, he's muted.
Muted.
Sorry, I'm on mute. No.
No,
No?
voted no.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Klein?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
No.
Mr. Gajeki?
No.
Mr. Matheson?
Was that 3-3?
Up to the plate.
When was the last time I got to vote? Wow, I'm gonna vote no.
Motion denied. 4-3.
So now they just come when they want.
So now Burritoville's not
No
allowed.
regulations at all.
No, there's no regulations.
Oh, there's no regulations, so they can do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want.
I don't get why. Okay.
Wait a minute.
No, business continues the way it does because the ordinance didn't pass. Because we currently
We
don't
don't
have
have
it.
any ordinance in place to allow it.
We
Do
don't,
we?
do
Do we have an ordinance in place to allow it?
There's no ordinance against it.
But is there an ordinance to allow it?
No, but it doesn't need to be.
Mr. Schuster, what's the law on that?
Well, there's no law, there's no ordinance against it either, so, as long as they don't commit any traffic violations,
And they're paying sales
why
tax.
wouldn't they be able to operate?
It would not be allowed to operate. Is that what you
No,
said?
I think they would be allowed to operate.
Right. So since there's no ordinance and that gravel lot is private property, they can invite a food truck every single day of the week if they want because it's on private property and there's no ordinance saying they can't do it. This was to help us regulate how people could do this.
I was under the assumption that this was to prevent it.
Oh,
Too.
This was to allow it.
because we don't need ordinances to prevent it. We don't need ordinances to allow it. We can't enforce something unless it's explicitly written in the statute, which it's not.
So they cannot be on public property. They have to be on someone's private property.
No, you can't.
How would they be on our, how would they be allowed on public property?
Because as long as a village manager at this current moment allows it to happen, as long as they have permission, it's allowed. It's no different than if you wanted to set up a table and sell your crafts or something on the weekend. You
Yeah,
can,
but I don't think I can do that without something. I mean, Mr. Schuster, are they allowed to be on public property without village permission or, I mean, it's not their property.
If they're not violating any law, I believe they could. I need to think about that, but if they park in a parking lot, that's a public parking lot, they aren't violating any law.
Hmm.
If they have a Department of Health license, we don't have a business licensing regulation in effect. So that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I'd like to get the actual,
Well, correct, and I'll certainly.
you could for next meeting, that'd be.
But they're not prohibited from parking in a parking lot.
this would have given the village the ability to say, no, you can't be here, you're within 150 feet. No, you can't be here, you're on public property. Here's the application, no, you can't be here, you don't have an application. No, you can't be here because you didn't follow the Kane County Health Department rules. Now, we're back to where we were, which is we have nothing to enforce anything, which is the exact opposite that you said over and over and over, you wanted to regulate it, and then you voted no.
Mike, I'll stand behind my vote, you stand behind yours. I would like to get the official legal position on that at next meeting, to know what the actual law states, and maybe we bring it up again.
You'll have it.
Thank you.
For another day. So I just want to get clarification then, Mr. Schuster, because I know some of the businesses that are here tonight are looking at doing events or planned things with food trucks. If that food truck is on private property, like the question is on public property, if I understand Ryan correctly.
Yes.
If the food truck is on private property, because this didn't pass, we have no say so long as they're not breaking the law, correct?
As long as they're operating within all the other laws, I'd say that's correct.
Yeah. And that was my original position, was for it to be on private property, I'm okay, but to put it on public property was a big problem for me. But I would like to get an answer to that question if we can, so.
You haven't undone anything that we've been doing up until now. We're collecting the sales tax, the places for eating tax, they're paying state sales tax. We have to fill out an application, we will get a copy of their insurance certificates. So we can do all this just with an application process by administrator.
But how does that work if I'm a food truck and I partner with the Cave and they've got a private?
The same way it's
property?
happening right now.
But I'm saying, they have a private property. I don't have to apply through the village.
No, well.
I don't have to pay any application fee.
If you're gonna be selling food in the village, you have to pay the sales tax.
I have to pay a 1% tax, yes.
That's it.
But now, I guess basically we don't have any ordinance now, so it's a free for all.
The taxes that are collected on my sales anyway, right?
No.
Or do I report that separately as a business?
Yes.
So I have to then report that to the village, that this is what my sales are.
We have this in place. We require them to fill out first the state sales tax application. And then we require them to fill out the form for our local sales tax. And then we require them to report that.
For every business?
No, well, specifically for the food trucks. We've
But
implemented.
that's why I'm saying, how can we do that if we don't have an ordinance saying that that's the process? And then
We have an
to fill out
ordinance, we have an
applications.
ordinance that says you have to pay the places for eating tax if you sell
Correct.
certain items. And they do sell those items. So that's all we're requiring them to do right now.
Okay, so they just have to report, I'm going to be selling these items,
And
and I will pay you that tax.
And pay the tax every month.
Right,
Yes, and they're due to pay that right now.
right, okay.
But otherwise, everything else has been by a very cooperative conversation.
And I don't see that changing.
And when a particular business comes and asks for a special closing a street, which is going to happen probably tomorrow. I think the board should consider what's going to happen with our other restaurants when we start talking about liquor sales outside, liquor sales on public property. All the other communities in the area are doing that now. We've been reporting, I saw today. The state is recommending that you allow the liquor license to be extended outdoors and even on the public properties. The one thing they're cautioning against is that the village be named as an additional insured on for all those properties. So that's what we would be doing administratively, unless there's other guidance from the board before the next meeting. So I really do think we have very cooperative business in town. They all know we're trying to help them here, even though they're kind of out on opposite sides of this particular issue. We've been working with both of these restaurants, both ladies here, for the last couple of weeks to try and find something that accommodates. And now we have a whole series of regulations, or at least guidelines, that we need to implement to follow the new opening rules.
Can I just, I know I'm not supposed to ask questions during the meeting, but the 1% sales, food and beverage sales tax that the village charges is for dine-in purchases only.
Any
No.
prepared food.
Anything that's.
So if you
Anything prepared.
if you get something through the Dairy
That's
Queen
why-
drive-through,
Okay.
they get 1%.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, next up.
We have a motion to approve Faithway Baptist, we request a motion to approve the Faithway Baptist Church facade improvement.
Skip one.
I'm sorry. Motion to approve the streetscape concept design proposal from Planning Resource Inc. for $1,000. And I will defer to trustee Projecki for this.
Okay. So the two different companies were invited by Jay and Josh to come and walk the downtown. We had a total of 4 Business Development Commission members walk with them, along with Josh, and I think Jay was there for a moment. I was under the weather, so I didn't make it. But it was a very productive walkthrough. They took a lot of suggestions. Bill Swalwell was probably our lead on that, and came back with very positive feelings about it. Which was good. And then after that, they had submitted the 2 different proposals that you guys see in front of you tonight. The Business Development Commission talked about it for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Everyone had the opportunity to review the proposals. And we had a 6-0 vote for the PRI proposal for 2 reasons. One, it seemed to be more exhaustive and more invested. Whether or not that's, a great reason, that was the reason we came up with, and the pricing on at least the concept plan that will allow us to get our CDBG application through Freddie was considerably less with PRI. So we voted 6-0 to recommend the PRI plan to the board.
And as it says in the agenda supplement, staff supports and also recommends.
So I don't know, at this point, do I entertain a motion to approve the PRI, or do we go for discussion?
Questions or comments?
Questions or comments?
I have a question, because I feel like I'm losing my mind. I know, Jay, thank you for getting back to me on my question about things that Freddie had shared. I, for some reason, again, I'm losing my mind. I swear that when Freddie presented to us before you joined us, that she said this grant can be used for one of 3 things. One was the low income that we don't qualify for. One is the streetscape, which we thought that's an easy one that we could get.
Because it has to qualify as slum.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And the third was which was why the water main didn't qualify, is that it can be used to rectify an emergency situation or some type of situation that has happened within the last 18 months.
Correct.
And because that didn't break, it didn't qualify for that. Correct. Wouldn't the massive flooding that happened this weekend be within 18 months that this now qualifies for as an emergent situation?
I see how I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jay. Basically, yeah, Aaron, we all thought it should too, quite frankly. And the conversations that we've had down with the DCEO, it originally designed, that portion of it, from what we understand, is for things like hurricanes, tornadoes, things that are present emergencies that are unresolved. Now, we thought that, and I thought you had put together a good suggestion when Freddie was here of sort of grouping the different flooding areas together and sort of packaging that. They said no. And so I believe, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, the LMI, so that's why we shifted to the emergency stipulation within the CDBG as it correlates specifically to the revolving loan fund, didn't allow for the emergency portion, but we thought maybe with a low to moderate income we could, and that's why we conducted the survey. However, on the survey, that the people that were interviewed through the processes that Jay had set up did not yield the results that we needed in order for. I mean, it certainly was the priority of the group to try to get those in ahead of the streetscape, but we just didn't get it through.
I would say if a water line were to break, we had no other way to repair it, put on some sort of special patch that would just last us 3 months. That's the sort of emergency that they're referring to. Not something that's been happening for 30 years or 15 years.
Exactly.
Good. I don't know.
That frustration is not towards you, it's towards the household.
I have an extreme amount of frustration based on the fact that we've had 3 years in a row with data that is shown that there's been more rain than normal.
That we can't afford to fix.
And that is causing us a problem now because for the last 3 years it's been rain than normal and it appears to be a trend. We can't get with it. But yet I understand that, but we have families that are coming here and they're all mad and now all of a sudden, oh look, I'm sorry your basement's flooding. We're gonna have a beautiful downtown for you to go to when you can't go in your basement though.
I believe the phrase now is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Well, I mean, I understand if we don't use the money for the streetscape, we're gonna lose it. So we'd be bad custodians of the taxpayer dollar to not use it for this purpose. But we are it sucks. Sorry. It just sucks that we have $900,000 that we are being forced to use into a streetscape or we lose it.
And let me just remind you that this comes from CDBG, so it follows HUD guidelines, and that's where the low to moderate income comes in.
Right. And I know you guys have done your due diligence and going to meetings and talking to people to see if there's any possible way we could, but it's awful.
I would go further than that and say you as a board have really done your due diligence. I came here, there were 3 very important projects under consideration for this grant. Ryan was involved quite a bit, but Freddie and I pushed really hard with DCEO for the last 4 months. I think what we really had to do was come to a conclusion where to use the funds before we lose them.
That's right.
Now we're not in a rush, but we need to make this decision by June so we can get the application down. DCEO and be considered.
Right. And to sort of add on that, I mean, we started this in 2018, January, I believe. Maybe it was 19. It's hard. I don't remember exactly, but no, there was a lot of effort put in trying to get those priority projects. And first the north and south connection, and then the flooding issues. I mean, it's just it didn't fit the federal guidelines. Fundamentally, is what it came down to, which is frustrating. I don't disagree with you.
Ryan, where's the dollar amount coming from? Because in the information in the packet, the letter from Farnsworth Group, there's 2 options, $5,500 and $2,000. And I think in the minutes it says $1,000.
It's 2 different bids. You're talking about 2 different bids now.
Oh, there's more than 1 bid in here?
Yeah, Farnsworth was the not successful bidder.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 different bids. They bid $5,500 for the same work. This company bid $1,000. Then they had a second provision, which we did not request. The $2,500 was a separate provision.
And that's the PRI company we're talking about?
Yes.
No, that's Farnsworth.
PRI is just $1,000 for the concept design. And PRI is the company that already does our landscape design reviews.
Yeah.
So they do really very well.
Okay.
And Farnsworth is a very qualified company. They're out of Champaign. They do offices up in this area. They don't specialize in streetscape, but they have a very strong streetscape department. And I think what we saw was they put together basically a 1-page. Nothing was personalized for the village. Nothing was really specific to the village. And frankly, I asked them both when they were here. Remember that you're going to get paid for the actual work out of the grant. So please put as little as you can up front because the village has to pay this fee up front. And so PRI came in at $1,000, and that really helps us a lot.
Yeah, that was one of the conversations too, was, until we get the money, we want to spend as little as possible. And the PRI seemed to be the better quote anyways, and it's substantially less money at this point.
Other questions or comments? I will entertain a motion to Engage Planning Resources Inc. for the streetscape concept plan at a cost of $1,000.
So
Second.
Second. Yep.
Questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly.
No.
Ms. Klein.
Aye.
Mr. Coe.
Aye.
Mr. Gajeki.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Present.
Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1.
And Ryan, I'm not against PRI or the bid.
That's fair.
I'm against us having a beautiful streetscape and then people with flooded stuff coming back and saying, what the hell are you spending your money on? And I get there's rules and regulations.
We have.
We can say everything that we want.
We could do a streetscape on the street, but it actually would have to qualify
Big
as
water
slim and light, and I don't think that neighborhood would qualify for that either.
Can you have PRI just do like a cistern under the entire downtown area?
Hi, sister.
Let's have a community day.
That's it.
Okay, Mr. Mayor,
Digging the wrong spot.
now we have a motion, or we request a motion to approve the Faithway Baptist Church facade improvement at 75%, of total cost of $24,575, which by the way equals $18,430.50. And Mr. Trustee Krajewski, may you have a comment or two on this one?
No, we evaluated the quote. One of the things that we, first, it's literally almost across the street from the Guardian Angels. It certainly fits within the scope of what is defined by the facade program. And the amount of work is substantial. It will be a substantial change to the outside of the building. And the members of the Faithway Baptist Church have
Is
agreed,
now exiting.
donate a lot of the labor, which kept this price substantially down as to what it would have been otherwise. So we voted on this one 6-0, as did the beautification committee.
Were they planning on doing this work if they did not get this facade money?
And I don't know if Lynn is still on. Lynn was on about an hour and a half ago. It doesn't appear that he's on now.
I am still here.
Oh, Lynn, can you address that question?
The nature of the work would change. We couldn't be quite as comprehensive, but yes, we were planning to go ahead with work.
Okay, and the only reason I ask, sir, is that I rode by today and I saw there was work going on already on the front, so I was just curious.
That is correct. We had a window of opportunity where if we
Unknown
didn't take some
participant
action,
is
we were
now
going to lose
joining.
our window. So we got going. We had already pulled our permits, and we're moving forward with what we're doing.
Great, thank you very much.
And through our conversation, it was our estimation that the participation of the village is allowing the project to be done at a more, a higher level in a sense. There's more work that's going to be done because we're participating, which I think is ultimately the fundamental goal of sort of bridge funding for projects like this.
And I want a motion to approve the facade improvement grant for Faithway Baptist Church. Amount of $24,570.
So move.
Second.
We're paying 75% of the 24,000.
Yeah, it's 75% of that number, Jeff.
35%.
Number.
18,000.
I did the math in my head.
I read it out loud earlier.
After 19 something.
$18,400.50.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
Well,
Thank you, Josh.
Oh, sorry. What a compliment, Josh.
All right, 75% of 24,574, which was Josh's number. So, first and second from you, Rob and Ryan, right?
Eric and Ryan.
Yep.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Klein.
Aye.
Mr. Coe.
Aye.
Mr. Gajeki.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Mr. Robinson. Motion
Aye.
What? Sorry.
Aye.
Motion passes 0.
Fantastic.
All right.
I think item 6 speaks for itself, so I'll leave that to you all.
Congratulations, Lynn.
Thank you very much. If I may, thank you very much for your consideration and help, because this will help us move forward and expand on what we were doing.
Absolutely.
Have a good night, and hopefully you get done shortly. Good night,
I second
folks.
that.
Good night.
All right, Finance Committee?
I'm first, never first.
Lynn Hacker.
All right,
Is now exiting.
you'll have 2 items of reimbursements we'll do first. So you will see reimbursements in the amount of $194.66 to be paid on before May 27th, 2020.
Page one.
We're on the reimbursements.
Oh, no questions.
David, I make a motion to pay $194.66 in reimbursements on
Unknown participant is now exiting.
money.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Mr. Gajeki.
Aye.
Mr. Cole.
Aye.
Ms. Klein.
Aye.
Mr. Keller.
Aye.
Motion passes 0.
And then our standard accounts payable, $153,541.22 to be paid on before May 27th, 2020. Yes, sir.
Page 1, right at the top,
Yes.
$2,700 for garage door repair.
It's a giant garage door
Where's that?
at the wastewater treatment plant.
What happened? It repaired, somebody had to hit it. Do we have a bill? I want to know. I want to know if somebody backed into it or rotted.
Can I get to you tomorrow, Kevin?
She's got it.
They hit it while they were taking out dumpsters full of flushable items.
Yeah.
It doesn't say, it just describes the door they replaced. Insulated 18-gauge mill aluminum powder coated mineral bronze slab with alternating end
Yeah, it's fine.
something.
I have a question on page 4.
Biosolids building.
Page 2, yes. Page 4,
Yeah, under EEI.
uh-huh.
What is, help me understand what EEI has done for streetscape for $1,656 and we haven't hired a design firm yet?
Ryan?
I can tell you what that is. I don't know if Brad still lives or not. They reviewed the underground, actually met with our people and discussed the underground infrastructure that's in the downtown area. We don't want to put lipstick on a pig. So we want to make sure the infrastructure is, the new streetscape is good. So what they've done so far is just to do an evaluation. And we don't have cost estimates yet. That'll be part of the next phase, but there will very likely be some infrastructure work out of the 1.1 million. There's very likely to be some infrastructure work. We've already identified the areas, we just haven't identified the cost yet.
What do you mean by an evaluation?
Brad, are you still with us?
I am with you, yeah. Do you want me to talk to that?
Correct.
So at least, now, thanks for catching
Brad.
that. I missed, am I on mute? No. I missed the.
No, but you're not Brad.
You're not Brad.
Oh, okay. He said Friday. I was gonna do my best. I don't think Brad's with us looking at the participants.
Okay.
Is he?
They should be downtown mapped out, so I'm trying to figure out how we got billed for how many hours that is for an evaluation of something they should already have mapped out.
Well, it was more than an evaluation. I mean, more than just mapping out. We had a conversation with Mark and Dave, President, and myself. And we talked about various places where even intersecting sewer pipes and intersecting water lines to State Street. Talked about the flooding that used to happen on State Street, whether or not that was corrected. I would say it was meetings and conversations and emails and messages. And what I've asked them to do so far is just identify those areas that need work And then they will give us an estimate along, after the concept plan is created for streetscape, that will give us a budget for streetscape. Within that budget, we'll also have an engineering budget